Hello everybody and welcome to the second video in the Skew-T series here on Titan U. This is the introductory version of the Skew-T series. Basically what we're doing with this series is introducing you to basic concepts of the Skew-T chart, how they work, and basically trying, the goal of this is to try to get you a very hands-on, layman's term kind of approach to this, how you could work your way around these and it makes sense. So anyways, that's the hope of this. We're not going to dive too deep into the science aspect of many of the terms we're going to say, so some of them will go above your head, etc. Look them up if you don't know. We're going to try to add a bunch of these in the glossary and such too as well to really make this worthwhile. So anyways, with that said, if you haven't checked out the first lesson, you should do so. It goes over a lot of the basics, including temperature, dew point, how to look at how the chart works, what the basic setup of it is. So you should check that out and it'll completely catch you up. Now with that said, the other thing I want to say and get out of the way here at the very top, pivotalweather.com, that's where we pulled this sounding from. It's a forecast models website. You really want to check it out. Trust me, it is an amazing experience. We're actually going to have a series on this, or perhaps as you watch this, we have a series on this, of course, on model data and how to read it. So that's something you should totally check out. With that said, we're going to get started by me bringing in the handy dandy mouse again. Whoosh, there it is. I know everybody, the sound effects, very high quality stuff. So anyways, we're going to start our journey today. We're going to look at the LCL, the LFC, and the equilibrium level. Those are the three things we're really going to concentrate on in this video. Now to do that, we're going to have to explain a few other concepts and ideas, and it's going to be a lot of fun, so buckle up. First thing is first, we're going to talk about the LCL. Now before we find the LCL, we actually need to define what LCL is. What do we mean by that? Well, first off, LCL is short for lifted condensation level. The formal definition of the LCL is it's the height at which the relative humidity of an air parcel reaches 100%, aka saturated, when it's cooled by dry adiabatic lifting. Why is this important? When a parcel of air is saturated at 100% and then is lifted beyond the LCL, it will begin to condense into clouds. The LCL thus is a good measure of how high cloud bases are going to be, or how low, depending on your perspective, are going to be during a typical surface-based severe weather, thunderstorm event during the spring and summer. So basically, LCL is going to denote your cloud basis. So let's take a look at how to find this on a Skew-T. If you don't have it, I guess the best way to put it, if you don't have it labeled this conveniently, if you're using a Sharpie sounding like this, you don't have to do this because it's already there. But let's take a look. You start with your temperature, and you then make it rise, which again, like this, through the atmosphere at a dry adiabatic rate, which means you just simply draw a line parallel to the nearest dry adiabatic line, and you do it like so, and let's just stop it right there because there's no need to go further. Then with your dew point, you raise it at the parallel to the nearest mixing ratio line, and you just raise it parallel to that like so. Now where those two lines intersect, and again, I'll draw it like this and draw it like this, you see they intersect somewhere in here in your imagination. That is the LCL, and bam, there's your LCL. And so at that point, you will have cloud bases lower, or that's where your cloud bases are. The lower your temperature dew point spread, that 77, 74, see how close those are, the lower your LCL is going to be. Generally, the lower your cloud bases are because your environment is more saturated from the get-go. So with that said, you have that happen. Another cool thing about the LCL basically is that, this is a really big figure for tornadoes. The lower your LCL, the better your chance of having a tornado if all the other conditions are right, because it's a lot easier to get tornadoes at lower cloud-based levels than higher cloud-based levels. So anyways, we'll move beyond that. Our tornado forecasting course is totally coming as well, or is here. It's available on Titan U, or it will be available either way. So let's now take a look at the LFC. We're going to take a look at that, but to do that, we got to take a look at a couple of other items on the list first. The first one is your moist adiabatic lapse rate. When air is saturated, it doesn't cool as fast as its altitude increases because it is saturated. This is because the latent heat released when water condenses, it slows the rate at which air will cool. This lapse rate actually varies strongly by temperature, but we'll get into these two here in just a second, or we'll get into this, but this is a line of moist adiabatic lapse rate, and actually your temperature starting here about 500 millibars is moist adiabatic as well. And that's just basically a very simple parcel theory, but very cool anyways. So that's your moist adiabatic lapse rate. They're actually not labeled on this chart, but that's generally the shape of them, I guess is the best layman's term way to put it. The parcel lapse rate, which is this dotted line, basically it shows the temperature path of a parcel, the temperature path a parcel would take if it was raised from the surface or planetary boundary layer / PBL. To do this, you first follow the dry adiabatic lapse rate until you have saturation, aka the LCL, and then you will see the parcel follow the moist adiabatic lapse rate because the air is then saturated. This path allows us to find things like CAPE, convective inhibition, and other thermodynamic indices. So, you see, again, it's something like this to the LCL, then it will rise up. That's your surface-based CAPE parameter, mean layer, mixed layer. You have all that fun stuff. We'll get into all those things later, but basically, that is your parcel. That is your surface parcel. That's the path it's taking. That's how much inhibition you have, etc., etc., etc. So, with that said, we're going to move on to this little guy, the LFC. Now let's start talking about the LFC and how to find it, because we are going to totally do it. The first thing you need to know is the LFC is short for the level of free convection. This is the altitude in the atmosphere where the temperature of the environment decreases faster than the moist adiabatic lapse rate of a saturated air parcel at that same level. In short, this is when things go boom in the atmosphere. Finding the LFC is simple, and you can cheat. There is a short way and then there is a long way. The short way involves you finding the LCL and then finding the LFC, or you can just start from the LCL. And basically from the LCL, you will lift the parcel at the moist adiabatic lapse rate until it crosses the temperature line. And at that point, that is your LFC. From there, it will rise your air parcel along the moist adiabatic lapse rate until you reach the equilibrium level. And we're just going to go ahead and introduce that as well. The equilibrium level is the height at which a rising parcel of air is the same temperature as the rest of the environment. Or to put more bluntly, this is when unstable air becomes stable again. This is oftentimes, in practical sense, where the anvils of storms are forming. Now let's take a look at both of those. This is the LFC, this is the EL. So at that point, this is where your anvils will be forming up here. Your storms will be going boom completely right here. Now let's start basically at the LCL. And we got to start it, though, from a surface-based parcel. So, you rise this up, you meet the mixing ratio line somewhere in here, and then it goes moist adiabatic. At that point, you start it up, and you kind of go with the moist adiabatic at that point. And it crosses the temperature line somewhere in here, and thus that is your LFC. That's where your air parcel is going to keep rising because it's warmer than the air surrounding it, and it is not coming back. No, Sally, it is not coming back. It's going all the way up to the equilibrium level, which is up here. This is the tropopause, which is the end of all things surface. But anyways, that's where your anvils will start forming. It's an incredible sight, incredible dynamics. So, that's your LFC. That's your equilibrium level. That's your LCL. That's only 3 parts. Look at all this stuff we can talk about still. And we're going to talk about it. But, and not to mention hodographs. I mean, we got hodographs to talk about still. There's all kinds of stuff to talk about. But at this point, I hope you have a good idea about A, what all the rest of these crazy lines mean, and also B, about cloud-based levels, about when things go boom in the atmosphere, and about when unstable things become stable again. That's the best way to put all three of those. So until next time, I hope you enjoyed this video, and I can't wait to get more of these out there. We've got a lot more to cover. We're going to cover CAPE. We're also going to cover a few of these suckers down here, and we're also going to cover, we're going to cover of all of this in a very general and broad sense. We won't go into too much detail about all of them because that's crazy and would take hours. But we're going to go into detail about some of them and really just kind of give a why is this important for severe weather kind of approach to a lot of these down here. So anyways, until next time, study up, enjoy looking at Skew-Ts and kind of having a better idea about what's going on, and we'll see you next time.